What if I told you there's a single dollar amount that separates people who stress about money their entire lives from people who actually build real, lasting, generational wealth? And no, it's not $1 million. It's not even close to six figures. The number is way smaller than you think. And here's the wild part: hitting it literally rewires how your brain works. I'm not talking about some motivational nonsense you'd hear from a guy selling courses on Instagram. I'm talking about actual neuroscience backed by research from places like Princeton and Harvard. The way you make decisions, the risks you're willing to take, the opportunities you can see, the confidence you carry into every room, all of it changes when you cross this one threshold. And the craziest thing? Almost nobody talks about it. Hi, I'm Buck. I'm a simple man, and I love simplifying complex money topics so anyone can understand them. Today, I'm going to share the one number that completely changed how I think about money. And trust me, it's not what you'd expect. No get-rich-quick schemes, no complicated strategies, just one powerful number that changes everything. Everyone's obsessed with becoming a millionaire, or everyone's chasing six figures. But there's a much smaller number that matters way more in the beginning. And if you never hit it, you'll probably never hit those bigger numbers either. This is the number that separates people who eventually build wealth from people who spend their entire lives running on a financial treadmill, going nowhere. Here's what nobody tells you about money. Most people think wealth is this slow, painful, linear climb. You save a little bit this month, a little bit more next month, and eventually, decades later, when you're old and gray and your knees hurt, you finally have enough to be comfortable. Maybe you can retire. Maybe you can stop worrying about bills. That's the story we've all been sold since we were kids. Work hard, save consistently, don't buy too many lattes, and someday in the distant future, things will be okay. Your parents told you this. Your teachers told you this. Every personal finance book written before 2010 told you this. It sounds reasonable. It sounds responsible. It's what responsible adults do, right? It's also completely wrong. Not just a little wrong, fundamentally, catastrophically wrong, in a way that keeps millions of people trapped in financial mediocrity for their entire lives. Wealth doesn't work like climbing an endless staircase where every step gets you the same distance closer to the top. It doesn't reward you equally for every dollar you save or every sacrifice you make. The truth is way more interesting and way more encouraging once you understand it. Wealth works like a rocket launch, and once you understand this, everything about money starts making sense in a way it never did before. Think about what happens when a rocket takes off. For the first few minutes, it's burning absolutely insane amounts of fuel, just fighting against gravity. We're talking thousands of gallons per second, explosive force that would level buildings. Anyone watching from the ground might think something's wrong. All that fire, all that noise, all that fury. But then something shifts. The rocket breaks through the thickest part of the atmosphere. Gravity starts losing its grip. Air resistance fades. And suddenly, that same amount of thrust produces dramatically different results. The rocket accelerates faster and faster, covering more distance in seconds than it did in the first few minutes combined. What felt impossible becomes inevitable. What felt like struggle becomes glide. Your money works exactly the same way, and there's one specific moment when the engines finally ignite and everything changes. That moment happens at exactly $10,000 in savings. Now, before you click away thinking this is some arbitrary number I pulled out of thin air to make a catchy video, hear me out. 10,000 isn't special because of what it represents mathematically. 10,000 is special because of what it does to the operating system running inside your skull. It's special because of how it transforms your psychology, your decision-making, and your entire relationship with money and risk and opportunity. Below 10 grand, your brain is basically running survival software. It's operating in a mode that evolved to keep our ancestors alive when a bad decision meant getting eaten by a predator or starving during winter. Every single financial decision gets filtered through fear. You're playing defense with your entire life and you don't even realize it. You take jobs you hate because you can't afford to be picky. You stay in relationships that drain you because starting over feels too expensive. You say yes to things you should say no to because you need every dollar you can get. You avoid risks that could change your life because the downside feels unsurvivable. You keep your head down, don't make waves, and try to just get through another month. This isn't weakness. This isn't poor character or bad decision making. This is biology doing exactly what biology is designed to do. Your brain is wired to prioritize immediate survival over long-term growth. And when your bank account is empty or close to it, your nervous system treats that as a genuine threat to your existence. And when your nervous system is in threat mode, it literally cannot think about the future because it's too busy scanning for dangers in the present. But something remarkable, something almost magical, shifts when you cross that $10,000 line. Scientists have a name for what I'm describing. They call it scarcity mindset versus abundance mindset. And before you roll your eyes at what sounds like self-help buzzwords from a TED Talk, understand that this is backed by serious peer-reviewed research from some of the most respected institutions in the world. When you're broke, and I mean really broke, living paycheck to paycheck, not sure if you can cover an unexpected expense, your cognitive bandwidth gets completely consumed by financial stress. It's like your brain is a computer and financial worry is a program running in the background, eating up all your RAM. You might not even notice it consciously, but it's there, constantly draining your mental resources. Studies from Princeton, published in the journal Science, found that poverty equivalent stress reduces your effective IQ by about 13 points. Let me say that again because it's important. The stress of not having money makes you measurably, quantifiably dumber. Not because poor people are less intelligent, that's not what the research says at all, but because financial stress literally impairs the cognitive functions you need for planning, problem solving, and decision making. 13 IQ points is roughly the difference between being sharp and being average. It's the difference between catching opportunities and missing them. It's the difference between making good decisions and making decisions you'll regret. And here's the cruel irony. The people who most need to make smart financial decisions are the ones whose brains are least equipped to make them, precisely because they don't have money. It's a trap, a vicious cycle, a system that keeps people stuck. Think about it this way. Imagine trying to plan your dream vacation, researching flights, comparing hotels, mapping out activities, while someone is pointing a loaded gun at your head. How well do you think you'd do? How creative and thoughtful would your planning be? That's essentially what your brain experiences when you're financially stressed. Now, it doesn't care about beach resorts and flight deals and optimal travel dates. It thinks you're in danger. All of its resources go toward handling the immediate threat. Growth, planning, opportunity spotting, creative thinking. These become luxuries your mind literally cannot afford. But here's what changes when you have $10,000 in your corner. That number represents roughly 3 to 6 months of basic survival for most people. Rent, food, utilities, keeping the lights on, covered for a while even if everything goes wrong. Your brain recognizes this cushion as a safety buffer. It's not wealth, but it's enough. The gun gets lowered, the threat recedes, the survival software starts shutting down, and suddenly, you have mental bandwidth available for something other than panic. You can think, you can plan, you can dream, you can take calculated risks. You stop asking, how do I survive until my next paycheck? And start asking, how do I make this money work for me? You stop reacting to every financial emergency like it's the end of the world and start responding calmly because you know you have cushion. You stop seeing money as something that controls you and start seeing it as a tool you control. This shift is everything. It's the difference between a life spent running from problems and a life spent running toward opportunities. It's the difference between playing defense forever and finally getting to play offense. Now, let's talk about where this gets mathematically beautiful, because the psychology is only half the story, Mike. And honestly, the numbers tell an even more compelling tale. Let's say you're investing $500 every month into a simple index fund and earning a 7% average annual return. These are pretty reasonable conservative assumptions. Nothing fancy, no crypto moonshots, no options trading, no trying to pick individual stocks, just boring, proven index fund investing that anyone can do. Your first $10,000 takes about 18 months to accumulate, a year and a half, 78 weeks of grinding, 547 days of discipline. That's a year and a half of looking at your bank account and feeling like nothing is happening. A year and a half of watching your friends spend freely while you sock money away. A year and a half of saying no to dinners out, skipping the concert tickets, keeping your old phone another year, driving the car with the weird noise instead of upgrading. It's not fun. It feels slow. It feels pointless sometimes. Most people quit somewhere in this phase because the progress seems pathetically small compared to the effort and sacrifice required. They save for 3 months, don't see their life changing, and decide it's not worth it. They give up right before the magic starts. But here's where patience pays off in ways that seem almost unfair. Your second $10,000 doesn't take another 18 months. It only takes about 15 months. Same contribution, $500 a month. Same effort, same sacrifice, same level of discipline. But you shaved 3 full months off the timeline. Why? How is that possible? Because now you've got that first 10,000 working alongside your monthly contributions. Your money has joined the team. You're not alone anymore. Every month while you're adding $500, your existing money is generating returns, and those returns are generating their own returns. It's like having an employee who works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, never takes vacation, never complains, and never asks for a raise. By the time you're going for your third 10,000, the timeline shrinks again, maybe 14 months, and your fourth shrinks further, and your fifth. Each milestone comes faster than the last because the army you've built keeps getting bigger, and every soldier is fighting for you. This is compound interest, and calling it powerful doesn't do it justice. Einstein supposedly called it the eighth wonder of the world. He allegedly said that those who understand it earn it, and those who don't pay it. Whether he actually said that is debatable, but the math behind it isn't debatable at all. By the time you hit $50,000, your investments are generating over $3,000 a year just from returns. Money you didn't work for. Money that materialized out of thin air while you were sleeping, eating dinner, watching Netflix, living your life. Your past self essentially opened a second income stream and is mailing your present self checks. At 100,000, you're generating around 7,000 a year passively. At 200,000, 14,000. At 500,000, $35,000 flowing in while you do nothing. The same percentage return produces dramatically different absolute results as your base grows. This is why getting to 10,000 feels so brutally hard, but everything after feels progressively easier. You're not just saving money, you're recruiting an army. And eventually, that army is big enough to win battles without you even showing up to the fight. But here's the part that actually matters most, and I almost buried the lead by not mentioning it earlier. Saving $10,000 isn't really about the money at all. It's about who you have to become to make it happen. Think about what it actually takes to save 10 grand, starting from zero, from nothing, from that place where every unexpected expense sends you into a panic spiral. Unless you're making ridiculous money or living completely expense-free in your parents' basement, eating their food, this requires real discipline, a serious discipline, the kind of discipline most people never develop. You had to track where every single dollar was going, probably for the first time in your life. You had to create a budget, actually sit down and make one, and then stick to it month after month when nobody was watching and nobody would know if you cheated. You had to say no to things you genuinely wanted, not just things you kind of wanted, but things you really wanted. The dinners out with friends, the new clothes everyone else was wearing, the weekend trips, the impulse purchases that called to you from every screen and storefront. You had to resist the voice in your head, that seductive, reasonable sounding voice that kept saying, "You deserve this," every time something shiny caught your attention. You had to tell that voice to shut up over and over for months or years, and that voice never stops trying. You had to delay gratification, not just once or twice, but hundreds of times. Each small no was a tiny victory. Each time you walked away from something you wanted was a rep in the gym of self-control. And you had to keep doing those reps when you were tired, when you were stressed, when you felt like you deserved a break, when everyone around you was spending freely. Most importantly, you had to do all of this consistently. Not perfectly. Everyone slips up, everyone has a weak moment, everyone makes a purchase they regret, but consistently enough that the overall trajectory stayed positive. You had to get back on the wagon every time you fell off. And here's the kicker that changes everything about how you see yourself. By doing this, you prove to yourself, not to anyone else, but to yourself, that you can control your money instead of letting it control you. You proved you're the type of person who can make sacrifices when those sacrifices serve a bigger goal. You proved you have discipline, real discipline, the kind that matters when things get hard. That's not just a financial skill, that's a life skill that transfers to everything else you want to achieve. The same muscle that helps you save money helps you stay consistent at the gym when you don't feel like going. It helps you have difficult conversations in relationships instead of avoiding them. It helps you push through challenges at work when quitting would be easier. It helps you finish projects instead of abandoning them. When you save $10,000, you don't just have money in an account, you have evidence, concrete, undeniable evidence that you're capable of doing hard things. And that evidence changes your self-image in ways that compound, just like the interest in your investment account. You start seeing yourself differently. You walk differently, you talk differently, you make decisions differently, because you're not the same person who started this journey. You've leveled up in ways that go far beyond your bank balance. Let's talk about what happens to your career once you hit this milestone, because this is where things get really, really interesting. And this is the part that nobody tells you about because it's not obvious until you experience it. Like when you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're essentially trapped in whatever job you currently have. Your employer owns you in ways that aren't written in any contract. You might have a title that says you're an employee, but functionally, you're closer to an indentured servant. Your boss could be a nightmare, the kind of micromanaging, credit-stealing, soul-crushing nightmare that makes you dread Monday mornings. Your coworkers could be toxic, gossips and backstabbers who make every day feel like navigating a minefield. The work itself could be slowly killing your soul, boring you to tears, or stressing you to the breaking point, but you can't leave. You literally cannot leave because you need that next paycheck to keep the lights on and food on the table. Missing even one check could mean missed rent, bounced payments, late fees that spiral into bigger problems. So you stay, you endure, you count down the hours until you can escape for the evening, then count down the hours until you have to go back. This puts you in an incredibly weak negotiating position. You're playing poker, but your opponent can see all your cards and knows you can't afford to fold. You can't ask for a raise because you're terrified they might decide you're too expensive and fire you instead. The risk isn't worth it. You can't push back on unreasonable demands, the extra hours, the weekend work, the tasks that aren't your job, because you need to stay in their good graces. You can't take time off for interviews at better companies because you can't afford to raise suspicions or risk being caught job hunting. You're stuck, and worse, everyone knows it. Your employer knows you have no leverage. Your colleagues know you'll never rock the boat. You walk into every meeting, every review, every negotiation from a position of desperation. And desperation has a smell. People can sense it, even when you think you're hiding it well. But $10,000 changes the entire dynamic. everything shifts. Suddenly you have what I call walk away money. It's not never work again money. It's not buy a yacht money, but it's I could quit tomorrow and figure things out money. You could survive for 3 months, 6 months, maybe longer if you're careful while you find something better. You have options. You have leverage. You have power you didn't have before. Now, this doesn't mean you should be reckless. Don't march into your boss's office Monday morning and tell them exactly what you think of their management style. Don't burn bridges unnecessarily or let the power go to your head. That's not smart. That's self-destructive. But knowing you could walk away changes everything about how you carry yourself, even if you never actually use the money. You ask for the raise you deserve because the worst they can say is no, and if they say no, you'll be fine. You'll start looking for something better from a position of security, not panic. You push back on unreasonable requests because you're not afraid of the consequences. But no, I can't work this weekend becomes something you can actually say. You take on challenging projects because you're not playing it safe anymore. You speak up in meetings because your ideas matter and you're no longer afraid to share them. You negotiate harder when you get a job offer because you don't need to accept whatever they throw at you. And here's what's really wild, what seems almost unfair once you experience it. Often you never actually need to use the walkaway money. You never quit dramatically. You never storm out. The money just sits there quietly, untouched. But having it changes your entire demeanor in ways you can't fake. You become more confident without trying to be confident. You become more assertive without practicing assertiveness. You become more creative and more willing to take risks because the downside of failure is survivable. People notice this shift even if they can't name it. Your boss starts treating you differently. Your colleagues start respecting you more. Opportunities that weren't available before suddenly appear. The promotion, the interesting project, the introduction to someone important. It's not magic. It's not the universe rewarding you. It's that confident people get treated differently than desperate people, and money gives you the foundation for genuine confidence that doesn't crumble under pressure. Something else shifts when you have 10,000 saved. Your eyes start working differently. You start seeing opportunities everywhere that were completely invisible before, like putting on glasses after years of blurry vision. When you're broke, every unexpected expense is a crisis. Full stop. No other interpretation is possible. Your car needs repairs? That's not an inconvenience. That's a catastrophe. That's a week of panic, of moving money around, of deciding which bill doesn't get paid this month so you can keep driving to work. That's stress eating and sleepless nights and snapping at people you love because you're wound too tight. Your laptop dies? There goes your emergency fund if you even had one. Now you're putting electronics on a credit card at 20% interest because you need the laptop for work and you have no other option. You'll be paying for that laptop for years. Your rent goes up? Time to panic. Time to look for a cheaper place, which takes time and costs money and disrupts your life. Time to figure out which other expenses can be cut because you're already stretched thin. These events aren't opportunities. They're disasters that derail your entire month, your entire quarter, sometimes your entire year. But when you have a real financial cushion, something profound changes in how you experience these exact same events. Your car needs repairs? Annoying, sure. Nobody likes car trouble, but you'll handle it. You schedule the appointment, pay the bill, move on with your life. It's a line item, not a life crisis. Your laptop dies? Well, you'd been thinking about upgrading anyway. Time to research what you actually want instead of panic buying whatever's cheapest. Maybe you get something better, something that improves your productivity, something that you're actually excited about. Your rent goes up? Interesting. Maybe this is the push you needed to negotiate that raise you've been putting off. Or maybe it's time to look for a better place in a better neighborhood now that you can afford first and last month's rent without stress. What felt like a setback becomes a catalyst for improvement. But the opportunity shift goes way beyond just handling emergencies better. Your friend mentions over coffee that they're starting a business and looking for small investors. Before, When you were broke, you would have nodded politely, wished them luck, and changed the subject while feeling a familiar twinge of envy. You'd watch from the sidelines as they built something, knowing you couldn't participate even if you wanted to. Now, now you can actually think about it. Pull out your phone, do some quick research, ask intelligent questions, run the numbers. Is $5,000 a reasonable investment? What's the upside? What's the realistic risk? You don't have to say yes, but you can actually consider saying yes, which is a completely different experience. A killer deal pops up on a rental property that needs some work. Before, you would have scrolled past it, maybe felt that twinge of frustration, filed it away as another opportunity for other people. Now you can stop scrolling. Now you can run the numbers, schedule a viewing, talk to a mortgage broker. You have enough for a down payment or close to it. Your company announces they'll reimburse 50% of tuition for relevant certifications or degrees. Before, you couldn't afford the upfront cost. You'd have to wait months or years for reimbursement, and you didn't have that kind of cash. Now you can invest in yourself immediately and get half of it back later. This is what wealthy people mean when they say money goes to money. Yeah, it sounds like some secret conspiracy, like the rich have access to magic, the rest of us don't. But it's simpler and more mechanical than that. Having money gives you options. Options create opportunities. Opportunities create more money. More money creates more options. Like it's a virtuous cycle, a flywheel that spins faster and faster once you get it moving. And the hardest part, the part most people never get past, is that initial push to get the flywheel moving at all. The first 10,000 is that push. Here's another psychological change that happens around the $10,000 mark, and this one might be the most liberating of all. It's subtle, but it affects every single day of your life going forward. You stop obsessing over tiny expenses and start focusing on what actually matters. When you're broke, you agonize over every single purchase. Your brain can't help it. Every dollar feels precious because every dollar is precious. Spend $2 in the wrong place, and you might not have $2 when you need it later. Should you buy the name brand cereal or the generic version? The generic saves 60 cents, but the name brand tastes better. Is 60 cents worth it? What about over a year? What's 60 cents times 52 weeks? Is it worth spending $4 on coffee when you could make it at home for 50 cents? But you're tired and you're rushing, and the coffee shop is right there. But $3.50 adds up. But you deserve a small pleasure. But should you get the premium gas or regular? The sticker says premium recommended, but regular is 30 cents cheaper per gallon, and your tank holds 15 gallons. So that's $4.50 per fill up. And you fill up twice a month, so that's $9, which is over $100 a year. These micro decisions consume an absolutely absurd amount of mental energy when you're living on the edge. You're running these calculations constantly, exhaustingly, for every purchase, no matter how small. Should I order an appetizer or just an entree? Should I buy the 6-pack or the 12-pack? Should I get the oil change now or wait another 1,000 miles? It's exhausting. It's anxiety-inducing. And here's the thing, it's also largely pointless. When you have a solid financial foundation, you realize something liberating. These small decisions are largely irrelevant to your financial future. The difference between $4 lattes and home-brewed coffee is maybe $1,000 per year if you're drinking 5 lattes a week, every week for the entire year. That's not nothing. $1,000 is real money, but it's also not the difference between wealth and poverty. It's not going to make or break your retirement. Generic versus name brand cereals and cleaning products might save you $300 annually if you're extremely consistent about it. Again, real money. Again, not life-changing. The things that actually move the needle on your net worth are the big decisions. The decisions you make a handful of times in your life that ripple forward for decades. Where you live matters enormously. The difference between a home that's $100,000 more than you need and one that's right-sized Could mean $500,000 over a 30-year mortgage when you factor in interest, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and opportunity cost. What you drive matters enormously. The difference between financing new cars every few years versus driving reliable used cars could mean 300,000 or more over your working life. How much you save each month matters enormously. An extra $200 monthly invested consistently becomes hundreds of thousands over decades. Where you invest matters enormously. The difference between a high-fee mutual fund and a low-cost index fund can eat tens of thousands of your returns over time. How much you earn matters enormously. A single successful salary negotiation can add tens or hundreds of thousands to your lifetime earnings. These are the decisions that deserve your mental energy, not the bananas. When you stop sweating the small stuff, you free up cognitive resources to think strategically about wealth building. You stop feeling guilty about buying coffee and start analyzing whether your housing costs are optimized. You stop clipping coupons and start negotiating raises. You focus your limited attention and willpower on the choices that actually determine your financial trajectory. This shift in focus feels like a superpower once you experience it. You're playing a different game than most people, operating on a different level, thinking about different problems. And the results compound just like the interest. Now I have to give you a warning, because this is exactly where a lot of people, a lot of smart, disciplined people who did everything right, completely blow it. And I've seen it happen again and again. They grind for months or years to hit $10,000. They do the hard thing. They make the sacrifices. They say no when everyone around them is saying yes. They stick with it when it would be easier to quit, and then they hit the number. They see 5 figures in their account for the first time, and they feel it. That psychological shift, that rush of accomplishment, that sense of or finally being in control of their money instead of controlled by it. It's a high, a genuine neurochemical high. And then they immediately reward themselves by destroying everything they built. Maybe they decide they deserve a new car since they've been so disciplined. They've been driving that old Honda for years, the one with the rust spot and the mysterious rattle, while watching their friends lease BMWs and Mercedes. They've earned this. They've sacrificed. The balance in their account proves they're responsible. So what's the harm in treating themselves to something nice? Maybe they take an expensive vacation because they've earned it. 2 weeks in Europe, nice hotels, fancy restaurants. All that time saying no to small pleasures, surely they deserve one big yes. They'll remember this trip forever. You can't put a price on memories. Maybe they use it as a down payment on a house they can't really afford, stretching their budget to the breaking point because they're tired of renting, tired of building someone else's equity, ready to own something. The mortgage payment will be tight, but they'll make it work. They always make it work. Here's what I need you to understand, really understand, before you make any of these mistakes yourself. That $10,000 is not a trophy. It's not a gold star for good behavior. It's not a permission slip to upgrade your lifestyle. It's not proof that you can now afford nice things. That money is a seed. It's the foundation of everything you're going to build. It's the starting point of compound growth that could turn into 50,000, 100,000, 500,000, a million or more, if and only if you give it enough time and protect it from yourself. Every dollar you pull out of that account isn't just a dollar lost today. It's also all the future dollars that dollar would have become. It's the growth you'll never see, the opportunities you'll never have, the security you'll never feel. $1 withdrawn is $10 sacrificed over 20 years. $1,000 spent is $10,000 never accumulated. The whole point isn't to get to 10,000 and then spend it and start over. The whole point is to get to 10,000 and then watch it multiply while you keep adding to it, to let the snowball roll downhill, getting bigger and faster with every rotation. Celebrate if you want to. You should feel proud of yourself, genuinely proud. You did something difficult. You proved something important. But celebrate small. Buy yourself a nice dinner at a restaurant you've been wanting to try. Take a weekend trip somewhere within driving distance. Get a massage or a spa day. Treat yourself to something that costs $100, not $10,000. Then get right back to building. Your job now is to protect what you've built and keep the momentum going. The magic doesn't happen at 10,000. The magic happens because of 10,000, but only if you let it compound. Let me talk specifically about cars for a minute, because this is where more wealth gets destroyed than almost anywhere else. And almost nobody realizes it until it's too late. Here's a statistic that should make you uncomfortable. The average person will spend more money on vehicles over their lifetime than it would take to achieve complete financial independence. Read that again. The thing people use to drive to jobs they hate costs more than what it would take to never need a job again. Between car payments, insurance, maintenance, gas, registration, parking, and the occasional repair, most people drop somewhere between $500 and $1,000 every single month on transportation. For many families, it's their second largest expense after housing. And unlike housing, a car doesn't even pretend to be an investment. Let's do some math that will either make you laugh or cry, depending on your current situation. $1,000 a month on transportation over a 40-year career is $480,000. Just spent, gone, depreciated to nothing. And that's not counting what that money could have become if invested instead. $500,000 invested for 40 years at 7% becomes almost $7 million. That's not a typo. The money the average person spends getting from point A to point B over their working life, if invested instead, could have made them a multimillionaire. Meanwhile, these same people claim they can't afford to save for retirement. They say they'll start investing next year when things get easier. They watch their wealthy friends build portfolios while they trade in one depreciating asset for another, then another, then another, somehow never connecting the dots. Here's what makes this even more frustrating. The moment you drive a new car off the lot, it loses somewhere between 10 and 20% of its value. Not over a year, not over a month. So the moment you cross from the dealership parking lot to the public road, your asset becomes worth thousands less than you just paid for it. Like, you're not just spending money on a car, you're actively, immediately, dramatically destroying wealth. Now compare that to putting the same money in a diversified index fund. Instead of watching your asset lose value every single year until it's worth nothing, you're watching it grow. The same amount of money treated differently produces completely opposite results. Like when you have 10,000 saved, this math becomes impossible to ignore. You start doing the calculation automatically, almost against your will. That $30,000 car isn't really costing you $30,000. It's costing you what that $30,000 could have become, easily $200,000 or more over 20 years of compound growth. You're not buying a car? You're buying a car and paying $200,000 for the privilege. Suddenly, driving a reliable used car, a 3-year-old Honda or Toyota that someone else already paid the depreciation on, doesn't feel like deprivation. It doesn't feel like sacrifice or settling. It feels like a strategic choice. It feels like intelligence. It feels like funding your future freedom while everyone else funds the dealer's vacation home. The person in the flashy new car probably has a car payment they're stressed about, insurance that's eating them alive, and a nagging feeling they can't afford that they're desperately trying to ignore. The person in the reliable older car is quietly building wealth, sleeping better at night, and getting closer to financial independence with every month that passes. Which one do you want to be? Which one do... This way of thinking, this opportunity cost awareness, extends far beyond just cars. Once you hit 10,000 and start experiencing the psychological shift, you begin evaluating everything through the lens of what else that money could become: housing, education, vacations, hobbies, subscriptions, furniture, clothes. Every financial decision gets filtered through a simple question. Is this worth what it's actually costing me, including the growth I'm giving up? This isn't about becoming a miser who never enjoys anything. It's not about counting every penny and feeling guilty about every purchase and living a joyless existence in service of some number in an account you can't spend anyway. That's a miserable way to live. And it's not what I'm suggesting. This is about becoming intentional. It's about making conscious choices instead of sleepwalking through purchases on autopilot. It's about spending money on what actually matters to you and not spending money on what doesn't. And here's what surprises most people when they start thinking this way. You often realize you don't actually want half the stuff you thought you wanted. That bigger apartment, the extra square footage would be nice, sure. More room for stuff, a spare bedroom for guests, maybe a dedicated office space. But is it worth delaying your financial independence by 3 years? Is it worth 3 more years of needing to work for someone else? Actually, on reflection, your current place is fine. That expensive hobby, golf, skiing, photography with all the lenses, whatever it is, it's fun, no doubt. But are there ways to get similar enjoyment for less money? Could you hike instead of ski? Could you rent equipment when you need it instead of buying? Could you find joy in something that doesn't require constant spending? That premium subscription, that club membership, that service you signed up for, do you actually use it enough to justify the cost? When you actually look at the numbers, you might find you're paying for things you barely touch. You're not depriving yourself. You're discovering something important. A lot of what you spent money on wasn't actually making you happy. It was filling some temporary emotional hole, or keeping up with what everyone else was doing, or buying convenience you didn't really need. When that spending stops, you often don't miss it at all. The things that actually make you happy, time with people you love, work that matters, health, experiences, growth, most of them don't cost that much. The expensive stuff was mostly noise. Let me be completely straight with you as we wrap this up. $10,000 isn't going to make you rich overnight. It's not going to solve all your problems. It's not going to transform your life the moment you hit it. You won't wake up the next morning as a different person with different circumstances, but it will fundamentally change how you think about money. It will change how you approach your career and what you're willing to accept from employers. It will change how you evaluate opportunities when they appear. It will change your relationship with risk, what feels survivable, what feels possible. It will change your sense of what you're capable of and what you deserve. It's the difference between being pushed around by life, buffeted by circumstances, reacting to whatever happens, always on the defensive, and actually designing your life, making choices, having options, playing offense for once. It's the difference between surviving and thriving, between hoping things work out and making sure they do. If you're watching this and you don't have 10,000 saved, I want you to know something important. It's completely possible. People with lower incomes than yours have done it. People with more expenses than you have done it. People in worse circumstances with more obstacles have done it. It doesn't require a huge income or a lucky break or perfect circumstances or a rich relative or a windfall. It doesn't require you to be smarter than everyone else or more talented or more connected. It requires 3 things: consistency, patience, and the willingness to sacrifice short-term comfort for long-term freedom. Start with whatever you can. If $500 a month feels impossible, start with $200. If $200 feels like too much, start with $100. If $100 is still too much, start with $50. Start with $20. Start with whatever you can actually sustain. The amount matters less than the habit. Saving $20 a month isn't going to make you rich, but it builds the muscle. It proves to yourself that you can do this. It creates the identity of someone who saves. And once that identity takes hold, increasing the amount becomes natural. Build the muscle, prove to yourself you can do it. Then gradually increase the amount as your income grows and your expenses get optimized and your life expands. to accommodate this new priority. Every dollar you save is a brick in your foundation. Every month you stay consistent is evidence that you're the type of person who builds things instead of just consuming them. Every milestone you hit makes the next one easier. Your future self is depending on the decisions you make right now, today, this week, this month. They're either going to look back with overwhelming gratitude for the sacrifices you made and the discipline you showed, or they're going to look back with regret for the opportunities you wasted and the time you lost. Make them proud. Start building today. You now know the what, but do you have the how? Look, most people stay broke because they think fixing their finances is complicated math. It's not. You just need one easy first step to get the ball rolling. Stop overcomplicating it. This next video gives you the simple, stress-free way to finally take control. Watch this, and let's fix your situation today.